Leah. Let's get you in here on Instagram. I know. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. I can't.
Hi, I'm
There
here.
you are. Yay. Okay. So, veterinary practices. I have so many notes for this today because I feel like I didn't realize how passionate I was about it until I started really digging into it and then thinking about my experiences at the veterinarian, um, because everybody is being affected by this right now, and it's not. I don't want to say it's all evil, right? My problem. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
All right,
But
for those who aren't familiar with what we're talking about today, we're talking about the corporate influx in the veterinary
mhm.
industry. So just corporate
Yeah,
veterinary clinics, kind of gobbling up independently owned veterinary clinics, and
hmm,
what that means not only for pet parents, but also for veterinarians, because it's not
yeah,
always in their best interest either. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can take
I
off,
mean,
girl.
that's kind of one of the things that they try to make it really appealing to veterinarians. And I was actually listening to a couple of Dr. Judy's videos because I didn't realize when we scheduled this that this month they
Mm-hmm.
all month long Dr. Judy Naturally Healthy Pets has been talking about um, corporate takeover of veterinary clinics, veterinary burnout. I
It's
think
Veterinary
veterinary
Appreciation Month.
appreciate,
Yes.
yeah. And I do first and foremost want to say, because I've had a lot of posts this month, kind of unknowingly, about our veterinarians. It wasn't intentional, but I appreciate our veterinarians so much for the education that they have, for the work they're putting in, for the empathy that they have, for they're not getting into veterinary medicine to make money. That's not why people join the profession. It's not oh, I'm going to be a hedge fund manager because I want to be rich, right? That's not how it is with people who get into the veterinary profession. And but it's a storm. There's so many things going on that's just creating this really perfect situation for corporate interests to be buying out a lot of what were previously private vet practices. And they have this really amazing package. They're going to give you some, and more than anything, they are going to offer you more money than somebody else who's going to come and buy into your practice privately. And we can even talk about the fact that veterinary school doesn't set you up to be an entrepreneur, right? If you're going to own your own veterinary practice, you're running a business,
Right.
and that's not a small thing or an easy thing to do. So there are a lot of perks for veterinarians, especially coming right out of vet school, to just join a practice. And they're an employee, right? I don't know about you. It's the same thing with our medical, human medical field.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many issues with corporate medicine. And I know, not to bring it all back to Dr. Judy, but her mom's in the hospital right now needing surgeries because she injured herself and broke bones. And it's I think they're making the best out of a bad situation because they're literally can't travel back home because she has to be in the hospital for months right now. And it is so frustrating because it's you can't get anything done without the insurance our insurance companies on the human side. Our insurance companies are practicing medicine. They
Yes.
are not allowing doctors to practice medicine. And that's kind of the
Which is
same.
illegal. They're practicing medicine without a medical license, but
Absolutely.
it's somehow allowed because
Hmm.
corporate lobby.
And when
That's probably
we look at veterinary medicine, take insurance out of it because that's not a requirement. It's a requirement in the United States for humans to have health insurance. It's not currently, who knows what'll happen, but it's not currently a requirement for us to have insurance for our pets. So take that out of the equation. When you're working corporate medicine, again, it's just checkbox medicine. This is what you have to do. This is what they're telling you you are allowed to do. They're only giving you access to these certain drugs because that's all they're stocking in the clinic. And they're saying XYZ. And if you don't do it the way the computer tells you to do it, you're docked pay or you're, I mean, that's just the reality of corporatizing something like this. So I don't want to completely take over. I have so many like statistics and stuff that I wrote down, but it's
Well,
not my favorite thing in the world.
I think we should start. Let's talk about, because it is Veterinarian Appreciation Month. Let's talk about what it means for them also, not only financially, but ethically. Because from my understanding, a lot of these corporations are dictating how they practice medicine or veterinary medicine. So they're saying if a patient, feline, canine, any other species comes in with XYZ symptoms, these are the tests you're required to run on this animal. And so even though the veterinarian may find that one of these tests is not necessary or is, something that they would put off for later, depending on the results of a previous test, they're being required to follow these kind of standards of these like SOPs, right? And they are being forced to maybe charge a pet parent more than they're comfortable with, knowing that that may not be the best course of treatment. So that's a huge ethical conundrum for anybody who cares about the pet parent, the pet parenting relationship, all the rescues that are in desperate need of homes, but we can't afford to find them homes because veterinary care for rescues is impossible. People are not adopting as many pets because of the recession, because of uncertainty, financial strife. And so now we're adding more expense to the veterinary care instead of less because of maybe unnecessary treatment. That is unfortunate. And that is really hard for somebody who went into this to help people and pets. Like 99.9% of veterinarians went into this profession because they truly have a heart for pets, for animals, whatever they specialize in. That's where their heart lies. They did not go in to overcharge people for nonsense. And like they're being forced in many cases to do that simply as a SOP, as a preventative to liability, something along those lines where it protects the corporation, but it doesn't protect the heart of the vet. It doesn't protect the vet pet parent relationship, and it doesn't protect the pet parent pet relationship either. So to me, that's like where we start with, if we appreciate our vets, we need to let them be vets. We need to let them do what they went to school to do, and we need to empower them no matter what practice they operate out of. We need to let them be vets. And when a corporate system is getting involved in their practice, it comes back to the same thing you were saying about insurance companies. Now the corporation is practicing medicine, which they shouldn't be. They should be hiring veterinarians and giving them full empowerment to do what they train to do. So that to me is my biggest like soapbox moment. It's like, get out of the veterinarian's head, let them practice medicine. Don't force them to do superfluous things that they're not really interested in doing or don't see the benefit of. And let's try to keep these costs down so that we can actually help those that need it. Those tests are there. We can do them down the line, but if you're forcing them to like just check boxes, like you said, it's going to impact so many aspects of pet care. And it's really ultimately going to hurt the pets, the vets, the pet parents, period.
And just to kind of give you an idea of what is actually going on, for me, I know, I can call a veterinary practice and I mean, simply ask the question, are you privately owned or are you corporate owned? You could probably find this information on their website, but you can ask. And because it is my preference, even if, I mean, in general, most places it's like if there is one veterinarian there, probably not corporate owned, still ask because maybe something just happened and they just got bought out. You never know. But even places that have multiple veterinarians on staff are not necessarily corporate owned. So always ask.
Yeah.
They can still be privately owned, where like one veterinarian or a couple veterinarians own the practice and they're hiring other veterinarians to work for them as well. That happens. So just to kind of give people an understanding and a baseline of like what you're looking for, like ask. And normally you're gonna kind of get the feel when you walk in. If you're familiar with, vet clinics at all, it's a totally different feel when you walk in. But to give you an idea of what is going on, so the first corporate-owned vet company started in 1987 with VCA. So I think, probably
Hmm.
all very familiar with VCA. Banfield was the second, and then Blue Pearl. Mars, by the way, the candy company that is not really a candy company because they they make so much more money on pet food than they do candy at this point. I mean, it's been many, many, many years since if you look at their balance sheets, they make a lot more money in their ventures in the pet industry than they do in candy anymore. So even though we talk about them being a candy company, like they're
Yeah.
really a pet company at this point. They um, they purchased Banfield, then they purchased Blue Pearl, and then they purchased VCA. So pretty much right now, it is about 25% of the what are called first opinion clinics. So like your primary
Hmm.
veterinarian that you see on a regular basis, about 25%. That's still a lot to
Yeah.
me. Are corporate owned. But if we look at all of the emergency clinics and the specialty clinics, 75% of them are corporate owned, and about 60% of them are owned by Mars.
Yeah.
So it's not even like you get a whole lot of choice. You don't get a whole lot of choice. They're all owned by the same
Yeah. Different
corporation.
names, same animal. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is the most concerning part to me, because they are making the products that are making your pet sick. And then um, they own the vet clinics that are supposed to help you get your pet better. So they're taking it on both ends. They don't have incentive either way
Yeah.
to do better for your pets.
Right.
That's the most
Well,
concerning part for me. And
you
and
said
as a
it
pet parent.
when you said they're selling you the poison and then they're selling you the cure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is really, I mean, that is,
Yeah.
isn't that just all of what we're seeing both in humans and in pets? Like the pharmaceutical companies are selling us
Yeah.
the poison as well as the
Yeah.
cure, right? We
They
are,
are.
but we're taking a
Well, yeah.
second medication for the side effects of the first, et cetera, et cetera,
It
all those things. And then we have the processed foods that we're also getting from Mars and Nestle and companies like that. And then they're buying up all of the, corporate, the hospital systems and
Yeah.
all the things. So like it's all interconnected and it's all happening all on the up and up. It's not illegal.
Right.
It's
And
it's
not
not
only
necessarily a monopoly
right.
yet.
And not only is it not illegal, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is responsible for both the food and the drugs.
Yes,
Again, even our
exactly.
government is in control of both the poison and the cure, right? So there is no incentive either way around, which is why, in my opinion, it is so important to do our research and to seek out private practice.
Yes.
Because the more we support private practice, the more we can keep private practice in business.
Yeah.
And so that to me is why we're having this conversation, not just to be, come on here and like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, blah, 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 this, because it is not great in my opinion.
It's not in our best interest, that's
But
for sure.
what can we do
Right.
about it? And we have to speak with our wallets. That's the only
Always.
way anything ever changes, no matter what we're talking about. So you have to go and seek out, in any context that you can, a private practice. It is much harder with emergency or specialty clinics, 75%
Yeah.
of them being corporate owned.
Yes.
But with our primary care, we still
And
have
it's only a
a lot
matter
of
of
stuff.
time before we see those numbers in primary care too. So like
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure. So I remember, when I was running my business in the DC area, from one day to the next, it was like VCAs were everywhere. You know what I mean? Like from one day to the
Yeah.
next, you just knew that it was being, it was not just the one on Duke Street. It was the one in
Yeah.
Centerville too, and the one over
Yeah.
here and the one over there. And at, in El Paso right now, I don't feel like I've ever seen one, but it's only a matter of time, right? It's only a matter of time before. And unfortunately, it's not like there's really much benefit to us because if somebody would argue saying like, oh, are these corporations are bringing more veterinarians? Like they can't create more veterinarians out of thin air. So they're not addressing the veterinary shortage. From my
No.
understanding, they're not doing anything about the veterinary shortage. They're just
No.
gobbling up the ones that exist.
Yes, they are not doing anything about the veterinary shortage. And if you listen to some of the more prominent veterinarians, like Dr. Judy Morgan, granted she's retired, but she did some videos this month where she was basically just reading what the AVMA has been writing about. And in a lot of cases, these corporations come in with these big, beautiful pictures of what your life is going to be like when they buy out your practice or blah, 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 whatever. And it really turns out not to be the case. Like you think you're going to get more time off or you're going to get more vacation or whatever it is, because the reality is that vet med is still primarily women driven.
Yeah.
Like most veterinarians are females, which is really, really interesting because Dr. Judy also said that there are far less women-owned private practice. So like even the private practices that are operating are still primarily owned by men.
Yeah.
Um, so the reality is that women in vet med still make less than men, and they don't have maternity leave. And that was kind of what we
Yeah.
started with talking about. If you are going to be a veterinarian in private practice, more than if you're going to own your own practice, you have to also be you're a business owner.
Yeah.
And that is not something that is taught to anyone in vet school. I mean, it's not taught to anybody in any schooling, I don't think. Like it's really like a sink or swim situation. Hopefully you have a good mentor to help you figure it out,
Yeah.
or else you're just going to kind
Or
of
you
wing
have
it
that
all on your
business
own.
stamina, right?
Yeah.
Like that business sense. Like some people are born with it, some people are not.
Yeah.
And some people don't really know, as somebody who owned a business for 12 and a half years, like people have no idea that the business owner has to do it all.
Yeah.
Like you are the accounting department, you are
Mm-hmm.
HR, you are
Yeah.
social media management, you are, the customer service face of your business. You are everything. And when it comes down to what a veterinarian goes to veterinary school for, it's to work with the animals, it's to save the animals, it's to help the animals. And so of course it gets to the point where they get burnt out, just like with any small business. And they have so many more challenges than small business. I mean, think about, like, compare it to like a mechanic shop. Like they're not dealing with life or death most days. They're dealing with a physical, asset,
Mm-hmm.
a car. They give you a price. You want to tow the car to somewhere else, buy. But for a veterinarian, that car is a living, breathing creature. And if you walk out the door because the person didn't like your assessment, you worry about that pet. You worry about where they're going next. And it's a much harder small business than most, just because of the emotional and like compassion fatigue aspect of it. So I just feel like it is tempting. I mean, I can only imagine that somebody in private practice for 20 years who doesn't have like an exit strategy would be like, wow, this is a great opportunity for me. But it sucks that that's the choice they're given, because it's not, you run your business for 20 years in a certain way with a certain value system, and then you are forced to kind of settle for an exit strategy that doesn't reflect what you did for 20 years. And it's got to be so frustrating, and it's got to be so diminishing and deflating to think like, that's it, that's where my industry's going, that's where my future lies. Like, unless I have a child who's going to take over this practice, or you know what I mean, like a younger veterinarian who wants to buy me out. It's hard because a lot of younger veterinarians are being snatched up by these corporates operations anyway. So it's not like it's not like your existing veterinarians have that kind of coming in.
Yeah.
The new veterinarians, their mentorship is being lost because we don't have those relationships anymore. So there's just so many aspects of this that I think people don't realize
Yeah.
when it comes
Yes.
down to how this affects just like the core of the industry, of the veterinary industry.
It
And yes,
does.
Tara Lee says on YouTube, we are the only ones that can advocate for our animals. And like Jessica said, the best way to advocate is with our money. It's where we spend our money. It
Yeah,
really is.
it is. And that was one of the themes that the veterinarians at AHVMA last year were talking about, is that a lot of the holistic veterinarians are getting older. They're getting to that age where it's like, I'm really thinking about retirement. And the reality is, I have all of this information and I have nobody to give it to. And when we are looking at corporate takeovers, there is nobody to give it to. They don't care about everything you have worked your life to learn about how to best care for animals. Um, you know, being able to look at an animal as an individual and assess that individual for what they need, corporate medicine does not care. And that is not how they are training their staff. That is not, they are not giving that leeway. This is a very generalized statement, but I think we have all had some run in with some sort of corporatized medicine, whether it is vet med or human medicine, and we can all agree that we feel that we are not being heard
No.
because they have boxes they have to check. Otherwise, they get docked.
Yeah.
They don't get their time off. They don't get their bonuses. They do it so many times they get fired if
Yeah.
they're not following what the computer tells them they have to do. That's
Yeah.
the reality of corporate medicine. That's
Absolutely.
not what I want for me, and that's not what I want for my pets. So,
No, and it's the one size fits all
yeah.
too, right? Like it really comes down to that that one size fits all. It's like this autopilot situation where, like we've spoken about in previous, weekly pet roundups, when we did anesthesia, when we talked about other things, it becomes like this autopilot where we're not personalizing the care. We're not customizing the experience for the pet, for the pet parent. We're just checking a box,
Yeah.
hoping for the best. I had a dog, Socks, who was super sensitive to medicine. She was the biggest one of my dogs, and she was the one we had to dose the lowest because everything she was super sensitive. That was just her constitution, right? And I had veterinarians that really listened to me when I said that, and they trusted me when I said that. It was never a fight, like, no, guy, because, there are
Right.
those
Yeah.
medical providers that are like, okay. And I've been lucky with my kids to find medical providers where I say, a friend of mine had this experience. What do you think about that? And I can have this conversation about my child. And I've had amazing vets. They've all been private practices, mostly male owned, but they have always listened. And maybe because of what I do for a living, they listened to me, but I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. I know I've heard from a lot of minorities that they do not get any respect at the veterinary clinic because it's assumed that they don't know, that they have no experience with pets because statistically speaking, they don't have pets as often as, your, middle-aged white woman,
Yeah.
So, right? So they're kind of treated differently, and we've all seen that both in veterinary care and in medical care. And at the end of the day, if you were to tell me that these corporations were going to make this process better, cheaper, more personalized, more available, more accessible, solve a veterinary shortage, then I'd be like, okay, I'm listening.
Right.
But from my understanding, and this has been going on for way longer than just 2024, long before the pandemic, long before the veterinary shortage that we talk about all the time, it has never been in the best interest of the pet, the vet, or the pet parent. So I'm like, so the only ones who really benefit, it's not even the employees of the
No.
corporation either. It's really just the entity. The
It
entity,
is.
the venture capitalists, the board of directors,
Yeah.
the CEOs, and the team at the top. Those are the
Yeah.
people
Because
who benefit.
they see where people are spending their money. And the reality is, and I know that we are struggling right now in 2024 in the US, like we're struggling. Inflation is insanity. The interest rate for housing is like
And
we're
housing
struggling.
itself is
I get it.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
but like statistically speaking, millennials are not having children. They have pets. 76% of millennials have pets,
Yes.
and they spare no expense on their animals. Even whether they have the appropriate
Right.
knowledge for what to do or not, they are still spending
Yeah.
a ton of money on their animals. People who had their kids, they're grown up now, their pets are their kids, they spare no expense on their animals.
They're
It
the
is,
best. Those were
yeah.
my
Yeah.
ideal clients were empty
Yeah.
nesters or young
Hmm.
professionals. They were my
Right.
ideal clients because those were the ones who needed the dog walking and the pet sitting because they were
Hmm.
still living their life, but their pets were their like primary
Yeah.
focus. So yes,
Right.
they're the best, and they are. Do you have statistics about how many or any ideas of how many like of the millennials are really being kind of starting, they get a pet and they go straight to a Banfield or they go straight to a BCA? Because I know they make Banfield and them, they
Yeah.
make it really
They
attractive for
do.
that first time pet parent who doesn't really know. They give them packages and will,
Yeah.
you pay monthly and you have preventative care and you have the vaccines and they make it really attractive. And unfortunately, they're almost preying on these newer pet parents who don't have the savvy, right? The just
Hmm.
knowing that like I don't need to take my pets to the vet that often like I did when I was a new pet parent because I wasn't familiar and I
Right.
didn't have that experience of knowing when to wait or when to
Yeah.
go. I feel like it's almost like they're preying on these younger pet
They
parents that don't have the
are.
experience, and it's really easy to fall in that trap.
Yeah. I don't know those numbers specifically, but I do know that in one of Dr. Judy's videos, she said that from the start of the pandemic, so 2020 up until probably the end of 2023, beginning 2024, the number of pet insurance policies doubled.
Yes.
Like active pet insurance policies doubled. So it is a concern. Like people realize that they are spending so much money at the veterinarian that they want insurance in place, which again, I'm not saying is right or wrong. It is indicative, like to me, is like okay, we definitely are not focusing on preventive care at all if we're putting all of our eggs in the insurance basket. But I mean, that's just our society. Like that
Right.
is what
Well,
it
and that's
is.
also it's also like it's very black and white, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of people and the veterinary medicine, like the veterinary industry tends to be very black and
Mm-hmm.
white. Like you and I are very gray. There's a lot of
Yeah.
gray. In our
Yeah.
conversations, there is
Yeah.
so much gray. In our belief and value systems, there's so much gray. But you go to the vet and the vet's going to be like, definitely get
Yeah.
insurance because they have seen the worst case scenario where
Oh
it was
yeah.
a huge, I had an employee and this is not related to my business at all. She had to take a few days off and we were like, what's going on? She's like, I took my dog to a park and he got impaled. Impaled,
Oh my
right?
God.
Healthy dog impaled. That's the kind of
Yeah.
tragedy. I mean, luckily they were able to save the dog somehow. She managed it beautifully. She was very young at the time. But these are the things that veterinarians see and are like, yes, get that pet insurance. And then we just kind
Yeah.
of leave that pet insurance for years and it starts getting more and more expensive.
Hmm.
And we're going to the vet less, but we're still scared to let it go. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of black and white where these corporations, that's where they live in the black and white. This is the
Yeah.
schedule of vaccines you have to have.
Yeah.
So if you do this, a la carte, this is what it's going to cost you. But if you join our membership, you're going to save all this money. But the pet parent doesn't know that maybe they don't need that
Right.
booster. Maybe they
No.
could do a titer for $50
Well,
and decide they don't need that. So, and
that's
yes, better insurance nutrition provision says vet insurance doesn't like to cover real preventative care.
mm-mm.
Exactly. So
No.
you're thinking that this is preventative, but really what you go into you when you go, it's like, oh, it's vaccines. That's the
Yeah.
preventative care that
That's
they
all there.
cover. And maybe like a once a year, like look at your teeth and take their, take their blood work. And that's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to fall into that trap, and it's very easy to be convinced because of that black and white, this is right, this is wrong, where savvy pet parents are like, okay, sure.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's not for me, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I think people that do what we do or know what we know or that are in the healthy pet space, they are more like there are still people that certainly advocate for pet insurance and that have pet insurance. And a lot of that is because they have done their homework and they know that there are some insurances out there that will cover acupuncture and different things like that because their pet does need it regularly. But not all of them are like that. And certainly if you're not like that Bainfield insurance, and I don't have
Yeah,
any problem calling them out.
yes,
That
yes, the wellness plans.
yes, that is oh my gosh. I if I could only like pick one to despise, it's Banfield.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's really funny because in the DC area when I was, actively a professional pet sitter running my business, my employees were taking care of thousands of pets. So many, like when we went through the profiles,
Yeah.
because they would register with
They
us,
make
and
it
we always asked the
yeah.
vet, and it was Banfield, and it was always the really responsible
Mm-hmm.
pet parent, the pet parent who found the pet sitter,
Yes.
the pet parent who knows their pet can't be left in a crate for longer than 6 hours, the pet parent who's doing it right.
Yeah.
And it was always the Banfield, and I'm like, why? There's a fantastic vet.
Yeah.
And I'm nobody at that point. I would never have said, change your vet. That was not my place. So I never said anything, but I was always thinking to myself, you're like closer, your address is closer to this amazing vet than it is to the Banfield, but you still fell for the Banfield
Yeah.
wellness plan.
Right. Because they make it easy and like you just pay monthly and you don't have to worry about anything. Just drop them off. First of all, that infuriates me. Drop them off before you go to work. Pick them up when you're done for the day. We'll have it all done. So when I met my husband, his dog was on the Banfield wellness plan. And I went to pick her up one day that he had dropped her off in the morning, and oh my goodness, this was like I didn't even know anything then. Like I was still that person that was like, yes, we have to go to the vet and do all the shots and
Yes.
do all the things and buy the most expensive kibble. And
The
I went,
prescription diet.
yeah, I went to pick her up, and I'm just like, what is that? Like you have no relationship with a veterinarian because they are, and I'm not saying that there isn't value in having places where people fresh out of vet school can go and start learning, right? That there's value in that, but the way they do it, and that's all they do. They are just constantly churning newly graduated veterinarians out of vet school. There's a constant churn. You have no idea who is seeing your pet, who is touching your pet, who is doing what to your pet. You do not build a relationship with a veterinarian because by the time you bring your dog back, guess what? That person ain't
A
there
different
anymore.
person, yes.
And I I picked her up and I asked because she had this spot on her that she wouldn't grow hair. It was like a round spot.
Hmm.
I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's a vaccine reaction. And I'm like, it's a vaccine reaction. You know this, and you just gave her more vaccines today. Oh yeah, it's part of the plan. You've already paid for them. Don't worry about it. Like I don't
Yes.
care about if I paid for them or not.
Yes,
I
let's
care about
delay
my
them.
pet's health.
Exactly. Let's delay them because that would be the best thing. If I've already paid for them, yes, you owe them to me, but do you owe them to me today, even
Right.
though the insert says do not do vaccines when somebody is ill? They say
Yeah.
if you are not familiar, the insert says that for veterinary vaccines and for
Mm-hmm.
human vaccines. That's why they ask you, like every time I go get my allergy shots. So these are
Mm-hmm.
not vaccines, these are allergy shots that I get every week. They ask me, are you sick? Have you
Yeah.
recently been vaccinated? Because they recognize
It
that my
matters.
reaction could be
Mm-hmm.
much more serious
Yeah.
if I say yes to any of those two things. But of course,
Not to
because our pets
mention,
can't speak,
right.
it's like
If you
we'll see
have,
what happens.
yeah, if you've had a vaccine reaction, you should never get that vaccine again. Period.
Yep.
Like, period.
Yeah.
Like you
Me.
had a reaction.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it actually, luckily, my reaction was so quick that I did have my doctor say that to me. The problem is when, like your dog, the reaction was not that huge.
Right.
That's
Well, it
the problem. Is
she
that
had
if it's not
it grew a
life and
tumor.
death, oh my,
You could
well,
feel
you see, but it's
it.
slow. But
Yeah,
it's
it was
slow.
slow. It was
That's the problem.
years.
It's
Right.
years. So
Right.
that's the problem. Is if it's not, because my vaccine reaction was so instant and so bad that it was like clearly we
They
couldn't
couldn't
deny this.
deny it.
Even
Yeah,
then, it was not reported to VIRS or anything like that. So that's another conversation for
it
another
is.
channel because this is a pet channel. But we, we have to have some kind of savvy. And actually, Raw Pod Ventures just said today is not about pet insurance. It just kind of goes hand in hand with the corporate, influx of veterinary clinics in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But she said that her client yesterday told her that Pet's Best Insurance won't cover the pet unless they are up to date on vaccines and they don't accept titers. So before you get any kind of wellness plan, any kind of insurance, make sure that they fall in line with your value system so that you don't find this out later. And if you decide that like for me, I did get pet insurance for Van Gogh, and it's a minor expense every month, but it is still an expense. And you know why I don't get rid of it? Because of fear that something terrible might happen. And it's totally, and I 100% recognize that it is a fear-motivated decision. It is not based in my understanding of veterinary care, what he needs, how he's doing, the risk factors that he's exposed to, all of that. He doesn't need all this stuff. But because I'm scared of the worst case scenario, that's why he has pet insurance. And honestly, I'm sure that it does not cover any kind of acupuncture or holistic wellness. Yeah. It doesn't. And that's really important that we need to remember to make sure that whatever we sign up with, whether it's the veterinary clinic, whether it's the insurance company, whether it's a dog trainer, pet sitter, make sure that you align, your values aligned, because that is the best way to protect yourself from a disappointment like what Raw Pod Ventures client experience.
Yeah, two things. One, again, insurance company practicing medicine should be completely illegal. Two, when I was looking at getting insurance for my pets, I decided that it was not going to cover anything I needed it to cover. And then again, I do not vaccinate anymore. I will titer test my dog. I have titer tested my dog. I'm done. I don't need to do it anymore. Right? So what I decided to do was whatever I thought I was going to be spending a month on insurance, and I actually don't even do as much as it would have actually cost me with all of my pets. I have an auto draft from my checking into a separate savings account.
That's what we should be doing, yes.
And whatever that, it just automatically goes. So whatever I would be spending on that pet insurance, it covers throughout the year. I just let it accumulate, and it covers all of their annual stuff. Like
that's awesome.
I pay out of it. So for me, that has what has worked. But I mean, there still are going to be things that come up that you're like, should I have had insurance? But again, if you are at all holistically inclined and they are not, like you wind up with a $6,000 vet bill and you think that it is covered, but then they go back and say, oh, your pet didn't have a rabies vaccine or whatever it is, or a Bordetella or whatever they want, right? Then they're not going to cover it. So what is the point?
Yeah, Tara Lee on YouTube says she has a pet care savings. And actually, that is what financial advisors often recommend. So that is not something that, Jessica is just saying, like, take this risk and do this instead. No, like that's actually financial advisors will. I know Dave Ramsey says that. I do believe that I had Budget Dog on my show maybe last year, and he was of the mind that like this is a smarter way to do it would be a pet care savings account where you just contribute every month. And obviously, it's always a very personal decision. If you have a special needs pet
Yeah.
that you adopted knowing had an existing illness or something, maybe that's a different conversation, but we're talking about for everybody. And for me, if I had to tell you, I'd be like, after a certain age, it does not add up because they charge you so
Right.
much as they get older
Yeah.
that you need to cancel that plan and do something else. I mean, I think the first year, if you're a new pet parent and that gives you peace of mind, by all means do it.
Yeah.
I think it's great, because you will go to the vet probably more often the first year than ever. I don't know if there's statistics about that, but I can tell you from experience that, first year pet parents, they might have grown up with pets, but it's their own pet now and they're responsible for it and they probably don't have kids yet. So this is like that experience of I'm caring for another being. It can't
Yeah.
tell me that its stomach hurts, so now I'm like super careful. But yeah, after that, I mean, especially for older pets and for multi-pet households, pet insurance can be so prohibitive. And
Yeah.
bringing it back to the conversation at hand, I think we have to remember that when we support local businesses, and I just wrote a blog about, supporting like an app-based dog walker versus a local-based dog walker, a technology company versus like a family-owned boutique business.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. This is the same thing. You're supporting either some like big on Wall Street versus like the veterinarian who has dedicated their life to your community from day one. I can think of my veterinarian, Dr. Martinez, here in El Paso. She is a single person practice. She has worked so hard that can't imagine somebody diminishing her business to like their bottom line, like the balance sheet, because she's so much more than a balance sheet. But that's what a corporation really comes down to. They're going to look at each practice, and before they buy it out, they're going to look at their balance sheet. They're going to see the opportunities to make more money. They're going to see how much is coming in. They're going to be like, yes, let's buy it. They have a ton of clientele. We're going to raise the prices. We're going to make a killing. Whereas my doctor is every day just trying her hardest to keep costs down. And whenever I, don't need meds, like when Titan passed away, I had a bunch of meds. I took them back, and she like gives them to families that, I've already paid for them. I don't need them. I give them back. She gives them to families. So remembering that when we support a locally based business, we support that person, we support their family, we support the vet techs in there, the receptionist, the office manager. My vet doesn't have many of that, like all of that. She has like 2 vet techs, and they kind of take over, like administrative duties as needed. But you're always supporting that local based veterinarian or business because it's in everybody's best interest, including your community, because these are the vets that are, in Louisiana, our vet, Paws and Claws, shout out, in DeRidder, Louisiana. On Thursdays, she did not work in her practice because she was at the local shelter spaying and neutering. And that is what she did on Thursdays. And like, very rarely are you going to see a veterinarian in a corporate office or corporate owned practice getting that kind of leeway, because she was giving up money. She was giving up money for her own spay and neuters at her own practice because she was at the shelter spaying and neutering the homeless animals or treating for heartworm or whatever it is that she was doing every Thursday, literally every single Thursday. So remember, it's not just about, monster corporation is bad. It's just about all the benefits of that local business and that local veterinarian and all the things that they don't put on their website because that's not their style.
Right.
It's those things you learn through conversation about all the ways that they're helping your local community, the homeless pets in your local community, families that are, less fortunate, that come into some expensive veterinary care, and how they help them. There's so much more to it than just, big business versus small business. It's kind of, it's just smart business to go with the local. It always is, for your local community, for local jobs, for local everything. Those veterinarians that are being hired, in Northern Virginia, they could be transferred at any moment. Dr. Martinez has been in the same location forever, and I hope that she will be there forever. I know that's not possible. She's still very young, so she will be there for a long time, I hope. And, I'm not worried that she's going to pick up and move to head vet. She's already head vet. She's the best vet.
Right. Well, and that kind of brings me back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, yes, call and make sure when you like if you're looking for a new veterinarian, ask if they are privately owned or if if they're corporate owned. That is something you should be asking. And but making that connection, having that relationship with your veterinarian is so important. Are you okay? Okay. I'm like I looked away and then you weren't there.
I'm back.
um, so having that relationship with your veterinarian is so important, and that's one thing that I've been trying to talk about more on my Instagram lately is having conversations with your veterinarian. Even if they are uncomfortable for if it's uncomfortable for you to ask questions or to feel like the reason you ask questions is because you don't know the answer
Of
generally,
course.
and that's okay. But to have that relationship with your veterinarian, and that kind of leads me into one of the reasons why, um, or one of the things we can do to help our veterinarians so that they don't feel so strongly pushed into corporate buyouts is creating that
Yes.
relationship with your vet, being able to have respectful conversations with them, um, asking questions and getting hopefully the responses you are looking for, and understanding that if you two don't meet eye to eye on things, especially if you have like a more holistic viewpoint and they do not,
Yes.
don't argue with them. Just say thank you and leave and go find somebody else. Because one of the biggest reasons for veterinarians, outside of the fact that they just are not trained in how to be an entrepreneur, so they have no idea how to run a business, they have tons of student debt when they get out of vet school, and it's just easier for them to be somebody's employee. That's just reality. But
Yeah.
outside of that, it is the burnout that
Hmm.
they like. Uh, I have said before that I think veterinarians have like the highest suicide rate of any
They do.
career. I think it might actually be second to air traffic control, but whatever.
No, no, it used to
Is
be.
it?
It switched.
It
Yeah. It
switched?
used to
Okay.
be. When I was growing up, I remember hearing from my parents, because I worked in the airlines right out of high school, and we always talked about how the most stressful job is
Yeah.
air traffic control.
Yeah.
And they had the highest suicide rate, I think, in
They
the
did.
90s. But today
It's
it is veterinarians. Yes, it
wow.
is
Yeah.
veterinarians, and it has been veterinarians for a really long time. And that's why we always are so careful to be like, this is not poo on your veterinarian conversation for
No.
I don't want Instagram to like bleep me out. It bleeps out when I use the S word.
Really?
But yes, I don't know why. But I this is never a talk bad about
Mm-mm.
veterinarians conversation. On the
No.
contrary, it's find the veterinarian that there is that relationship where you can
Yeah.
respect each other even if you don't agree on everything. My
Mm-hmm.
veterinarian and I do not agree on everything, but kind of she kind of because she's known me,
Yeah.
she kind of looks the other way. When
Yeah.
she first met us, we were feeding homemade raw, and at first she was like, and then my husband, he found her, so shout out to Chris. I don't give him a lot of credit, but shout out to Chris because he found her, and she came to the house because we had so many pets. And he, instead of just being like, let me explain it to you, he was like, come here.
Yeah. Let me
And he showed
show you.
her all of the ingredients, how we kept them, the freezer where he kept it, the big silver, industrial kitchen thing that he mixed it in. He showed her everything. And from that day, she literally says to us all the time when we're talking, she's like, I will never forget the day you gave me a tour of your like dog food making factory in your kitchen. And I was like pregnant out to here, and there's like raw beef, and she's like,
Yeah.
it is what
Yeah.
it is. And she started to trust us because we were open with her about what it is that we are, what matters to us,
Yeah.
what we do for our pets. And because we could speak intelligently about it, give her resources. She actually, when I asked about titer testing, went to her mentor. We talked about it. She was like, it'll work for everything else, but not for rabies. And these are the considerations legally that you need to think about. We had that whole conversation. And to this day, the only vaccine we ever do is rabies, just because of that legal consideration that, everything else she's never even asked because she knows where we stand. She's good because we have old, like, Van Gogh's new, so he's like, recently vaccinated and he's young. But Kira is 13. Like, she's not going to ask about all these things that she probably is already immune to. So she's not worried about it, but it's because we've had those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, she'd be like, who the heck is this?
Right. Yeah.
Excuse
Yes.
me.
So, yeah, build a relationship and be respectful.
Always.
Ask your questions, but be respectful. E- Expect to, respect in
Of
return, of course.
course.
But because I think they do. They have such a high rate of burnout. It's emotional. It's also very
Oh my
physically taxing on them. Like,
gosh.
I mean, they're
And it's
not,
more dangerous. I mean,
yeah.
they could, so from my understanding, and this is old information, so this could have changed. But I remember in like the mid 2000s being told by somebody whose child was trying to get into veterinary school that it's harder to get into veterinary school than it is to get into medical school.
Yeah.
Okay, harder to go the veterinary route than the medical route. Obviously, like MDs make a lot more money than vets. That's
Hmm.
hands down. Like
Yeah.
a good doctor with his own practice or her own practice,
Hmm.
or like some kind of surgeon, they make a lot of money. And they also have a ton of student debt and they have a ton of insurance expenses because of malpractice insurance and all that. Veterinarians, they probably could have gone to medical school
Yeah.
and gone that
Yeah.
route, but they chose the veterinary route. So if you have less respect for your veterinarian than for your doctor, or veterinarians in general versus doctors, then you're really you're
Hmm.
misinformed, because veterinarians could have been your doctor, but they chose to work with your pet. And it's so funny because I feel like people who work with animals always get like oh, that's so cute. And
Yeah.
I don't think vets are immune to that, even though they are medical providers, medical professionals. It's kind of
No.
like, oh, a vet. They're just a vet. Like, no, they're a veterinarian, and they had a lot of other options. They chose this because that's where their vocation lies, that's where their passion lies. So always remember that vets deserve the respect, not only because they're
Hmm.
human beings and we all do, but
Yeah.
because they're exceptional people in
Hmm.
both academically, intelligence, and just in general, in like in like their heart for pets. They really are exceptional people. And like, if nothing else you take away from this conversation is that we are for the vets, which is why we're
Hmm.
for local veterinary
Yeah.
practices or smaller
Absolutely.
veterinary practices for that reason.
Hmm. Yeah. So if you do want to learn more, the videos that I watched from Dr. Judy Morgan, one of them is titled Understanding the Veterinary Shortage. The other one is called Corporate Medicine. Is it in the best interest of pets? Highly recommend those. And just in case you're just joining us at the beginning, we talked about how Mars bought out Banfield, Blue Pearl, and VCA, that 75% of emergency and specialty clinics are corporate owned, 60% of those are Mars, and then 25% of private practice first opinion clinics are corporate owned, as of now.
Right.
So,
That
and the
stands to
reason,
change very quickly. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think we should plan, like, we need to check in with that statistic this time
yeah,
next year and see how it's changed, because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty quick,
I do
where we're
too.
going to see maybe 50-50 in the next 5 years. Easy.
Yeah,
50% private
more.
owned, 50%,
Yeah.
corporate owned.
I
Easy.
can totally see that. Absolutely. But again, it is very like create a relationship with your veterinarian. Like that is the vet co-ops. Oh, that's interesting, Betsy. Yeah, or sorry, nutrition provisions. Yeah, I think co-ops are amazing for so many reasons because they're for the people by the people, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like so that would be fantastic. But the bottom line is so many of our veterinary clinics are owned by Mars. Meanwhile, so much of the pet food space is owned by Mars, and it doesn't make sense for the well being of our pets. at
Or
all.
for our pocketbooks or for any of it. Like it doesn't make sense for any of it. And like again, if I were to be told like, "Oh, it all sucks, but prices are coming down," then I'd be like, "All right, well, let's think about that."
That's
But that's not
not the
happening
case.
either. So
No,
there is really no
no.
saving grace in this, progression. And like we said, and Tara Lee said, we're the only ones that can advocate for our animals. And that is mostly by where we spend our money and how we spend it.
Yes,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Tara.
So please, oh, thank you. Yes. So please have have open, honest conversations with your veterinarian. Um, be respectful, support your private practice veterinarians. That's the bottom line. That's all I
Yeah.
got.
Yeah. No, look, when in doubt, shop local. And that includes your vet.
Yeah,
When in doubt,
absolutely.
just do it. Just do that way because that is going to
Absolutely.
ensure that you keep your money locally, you support the local family that's been behind that veterinary clinic, your pet stand to make a relationship. And I mean, we could talk about all the benefits for your pet of having the same vet
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Oh
My
my
pets already
gosh.
know Dr. Martinez. They're comfortable with her. I trust her. They know that my energy's calm with her because I know her and love her. And going to the vet is not heavy or stressful. So it's so much better for everybody involved that I can't thank you so much, Nutrition Provisions, for
I
saying that this talk
know.
has been great.
Thank
I mean, I think we're both really passionate about just doing the best for our families and kind of just being savvy,
you.
knowing what the best thing is for us before it's too late, before we feel committed, before we've signed up for a wellness plan that is nothing but a bunch of BS, like
Yeah.
before. So if you have any friends who just got pets, send them this, tag them here.
Yes.
Let them
Yes.
hear what we have to say. If you hear anybody talking about the Banfields of the world, let us give them another option.
Yeah.
Because there
Absolutely.
are other options that we believe are better. So that is something that we'll ask as a favor. And if you have any topics you want us to discuss in future weekly pet roundups, please let us know. Obviously, we love to talk about them. So you can message me or Jessica, the Pet Parenting Reset, covered in pet hair, and make sure you tune into our podcasts. We both have
Yeah.
podcasts, episodes every week, completely different. She's holistic. I'm boozy, but we both love our pets and we both want the best for the pets of the world. So that's why we do what we do. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. And we can't wait to see you again next Monday. All right.
Yes.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.